It was a beautiful Saturday afternoon, and we had a plan. Well, okay, we didn't really have one, but we had several goals, a car, and even a little bit of money. So it was that I found myself at Stein Gardens and Gifts with two of my close friends, scanning what remained for the summer of their seed rack. Our eyes were caught by some beautiful sky blue flowers, according to the packaging, that were being sold for $1.99 per package of 6 grams. This was definitely the best price we had ever seen, and we decided to purchase 3 packages 9 grams for each of the two of us that possessed interest in the usage of the seeds. We walked out of the store with 18 grams of Heavenly Blue Morning Glory seeds and a nut roll candy bar. After giving a quick shake to the rubber hand that has been so deftly placed to hang out of the trunk of my friend's car, we entered the vehicle and proceeded to the shopping mall. First of all, we seized the opportunity to search for new reading material at Walden Books. The next stop was Kohl's department store, where we quickly made our way to the kitchen supply department. Our last endeavor with these seeds included a rather silly period during which, for lack of a better means, we found ourselves sitting around a piece of cardboard, taking at the seeds with various sundry items, a hammer, a C-size battery, and N20 cracker. While this had proved entertaining, we were rather joyful to exit Kohl's with a lovely $8.99 Mr. Dudley, Princess, pepper grinder. After acquiring some delicious cookies of the macadamia nut containing variety, we left the mall to check in at my home, gleefully grinding the included peppercorns wherever our path led. We had to empty it somehow. At my house, I filled my bag with a change of clothes, some coffee filters to replace the paper tolling of our last attempt, a successful attempt, but cumbersome, at best, some plastic bags to fill with the product of the grinder, a toothbrush, and 3.6 more grams of seeds whose presence in my drawer I had hitherto neglected to remember. 10.8 grams of seeds for each of us, it was bound to be a good night. We returned to the apartment of my companion for the night's journey, who will henceforth be referred to as Zworfin, and set about our work. The two that would not be partaking of our potion, the one who had gone shopping with us, who will henceforth be referred to as Jarquom, and the person living with Zworfin, who will henceforth be referred to as Prolict, left for Taco Bell. After the first, approximately 6 grams, our princess jammed up and became stuck in the closed position. Enter cardboard, hammer, Energizer, and Duracell. Eventually, we had 2 piles of fine white powder with black specks, each massing approximately 10.8 grams, and some Nacho Supreme. At 8:30 p.m., we carefully placed the piles of powder into 2 empty Ice Mountain bottles, chosen for the easy pouring associated with a beverage bottle's neck, with some rather warm water, and not so carefully ate our suppers for the evening, and set about watching the breathtaking thunderstorm the night had given us, while occasionally stirring our concoctions. It was interesting to note that the rather apocalyptic weather of late was easily understood in the light of the prophetic dream of one of our friends. The world was ending in this dream, and it was July 17, 1993. We chatted idly about the obvious fact that we had merely 2 weeks of this life left, and eventually, 9 o'clock rolled around. It didn't take long to rip all of our coffee filters, lose a good deal of filtrate, and feel hopeless. Luckily, we found that a handkerchief made a much more effective filter in this case, and we obtained a large amount of liquid, keeping the bulk of the solid matter in the cloth. We cleaned up the kitchen, proposed a toast to permanent psychoses, clicked glasses, and stared at our potion. Jarquom wittily began to chant, chug, 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 and Zworfin and I naively obliged. This was most likely the worst decision of the night, and the taste made me lightheaded enough that I wouldn't have been disappointed if the LSA didn't take. We quickly attacked the pitcher of juice in the refrigerator, and within minutes, our suffering was over. Prolict and Jarquom had popped "White Men Can't Jump" into the VCR, so I sat down to watch it while Zworfin grabbed his book and CD player. I'd estimate that it was very roughly 10:30 when Zworfin was starting to smile and nod knowingly, and I was groaning and clutching my rather displeased stomach. I was rather certain that I would not enjoy my journey if I embarked upon it with this sort of physical sensation. I considered the tried and true method of purging one's digestive system in order to smooth out the trip, but I couldn't bring myself to do that. In order to make it to church on time, Jarquom left at the end of the movie, probably around 11 o'clock, driven by Prolict. I was a little disturbed by Prolict's absence, as she was to be our anchor to reality, guide, and babysitter, but she would return soon, of course. While she was gone, my trip turned around completely. It seems that the basic turning point was the partaking of a Mr. Freeze-style popsicle at the behest of Zwarfin. I was beginning to feel the amplification of all physical touch, and my mind was softly humming with the giddy onset of free association. Zwarfin was overjoyed, as he was definitely eager to have a companion for his trip. Prolicht returned, and after taking care of some minor things around the apartment, laundry and such, she sat down with us, and joined us. She truly did join us, too. All three of us agreed that it almost seemed as if she had imbibed a decent share of LSA, also. Of course, she still had a firm grip on reality, but she was willing to play along with our silliness, and she enveloped herself completely in the emotional outpouring that Zwarfin and I had for her. There had been a few too many problems in our relationship. One relationship for the three of us, because that's basically the way we live it, and we couldn't have hoped for a more thorough reconciliation. Zwarfin and I quickly understood what had been separating us, and we were able to finish each other's sentences to an unreasonable extent, as if we both had a full script in front of us. After we felt our problem solved, we turned to Prolicht. We realized suddenly how important she was to our experience, our lives, and our relationship, and she was the main object of our thoughts for most, if not all, of the trip. Although I'm still not sure ultimately how the entire experience affected Zwarfin and Prolicht's relationship, I was presented with a remarkable understanding of how the entire ordeal would eventually turn out favorably. Prolicht will be leaving soon to spend some time on her own, sorting things out, but I have never felt closer to anyone than I felt to the two of them that night, and I now am well aware that that bond will always, in some way, hold us all together. I was in constant awe at the beauty surrounding me. Zwarfin, who had helped me through the most difficult times in my life thus far. Prolicht, who had entered into my life rather recently, but to whom I already felt a love as strong as any I've ever known. And the relationship between all three of us, which was manifesting as a pure ever-strengthening glow of closeness. Many important realizations and analogies about life and reality were developed that night, but none seemed as important as the understanding and sharing that went on between us. The profound glowing ecstasy of it all is beyond description. I felt at many times as if I would cry from the sheer beauty of it all. Even when Zwarfin was expressing his tearing emotions of loss at Prolicht's planned departure, my tears were not of sadness, but of love and joy for the wondrous light I saw in both of them. I could tell, then, in everything that any of us did. I saw myself in them, and each of them in the other and myself. We spent much time snuggling and idly holding hands, stroking arms in various combinations, and the pure energy that was transmitted to me caused me to wonder if my body could handle such warm, all-encompassing sensations. I also have never seen such beauty as I found in Prolicht's reactions to the experience. Eventually, Prolicht grew tired, and Zwarfin and I were able to continue our discussions between each other, basking in the seemingly error-free connection between our thoughts. We could discuss a model for reality, and it would instantly appear in the other's mind. The most useful and applicable of these was a fractal model for relationships, thoughts, and experiences. A thought or an experience is an infinite spiral, consisting of innumerable other spirals, and placed as a component of other, larger spirals. Thus, a thought could be pursued into itself, gaining detail as the spirals of which it is composed are made up. Or, one can pursue the thought as it relates to other thoughts, where it fits in the larger spirals. When we gave an analogy to the other, it was an empty spiral, and it only made sense when we realized how to fit our existing thoughts into it. A few clues, the thoughts that we had already understood to fit into the analogy, would help to get the point across. An analogy for this, not to get carried away. Smiley face. If I give you a bunch of stones and say, arrange them in the right order, you're sort of at a loss. But, if I say, arrange them into a circle with a line through the center, you can make an image that looks very nearly like mine. The line could be oriented incorrectly, but one of us has only to walk a short distance around the circle to remedy that. We continued on until 4 or 5 in the morning, when I took 150 milligrams of valerian extract, in an attempt to cushion the ride back down and get some sleep. It worked beautifully. I felt myself tying up loose ends, and coming back to reality, a sensation I find perhaps more intriguing than much of the trip, but it was very smooth. I closed my eyes, and saw beautiful images that reminded me of computer graphics. In fact, I'm in the process of ray tracing and animating one of them. Zwarfin saw similar images. We knew that this would be a major stepping stone in many of the relationships we've been strongly working to lift to the level that ours has reached. Indeed, discussing this with a few other friends the day after proved to patch many gaps in our understanding of each other. It is for this that I advocate the usage of substances such as LSA. We made an effort to use it efficiently, effectively, responsibly, and safely, and 2 days later, the only effects that remain with me are the newfound love among my friends. Learning to use powerful tools has its rewards, and the human mind is my favorite of all the tools I've yet to encounter. I expect I'll be writing a huge text on the things we learned, in the hopes that a few more people will understand them. I can't hope to include the majority of even the highlights, because it was all so important, but this should at least serve to reaffirm the sense that these substances have the potential to create and further beautiful things, in ways I could no longer deny.